Hi, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to show you how to change the brake pads on the RadMini 4 with pulling off the caliper, not by removing the wheel. On my previous video where I did it removing the wheels, I had a couple comments in the comment section suggesting that you can do it with just taking off the caliper and leaving the wheels on the bike. And I actually did do it on the back wheel earlier this week because I had the brake pads wear out then. Had to order another set of brake pads, so I'm going to put them on the front right now and show you how to do it with not removing the wheel. One thing that I noticed is once the brake pads are worn down to a certain amount, it seems to be that the caliper actually will move the piston and it misses pulling the brake pads onto the rotor. You can hear that click noise. What happens is I believe the arm that pulls on the caliper to squeeze the brake pads on the rotor is just pulling too much. It's at too much of an angle and it misses actually getting the brake pad on there. At least that's what I've noticed both on my front and rear brakes. When they're worn to the maximum limit, then I just get this happens and it won't actually squeeze it onto the rotors, which ends up being kind of a safety issue because you go to pull for brakes, you had brakes, and then all of a sudden now you do not have brakes. So that's one thing I've noticed and haven't really figured out a way to cure that issue. I don't know, I'm gonna email Rad and see what they have to say, but that's just one thing I noticed when the pads are all the way worn down. So first thing we're gonna do is the cotter pin that's bent up here, I'm gonna actually bend it up straighten. That way we can get the pin out, and it's a little bit easier to do it while it's actually still bolted on here. So that just goes like that. And now we're just gonna loosen up the caliper bolts. All right, now that I have the caliper out, I'm just simply going to slide out the cotter pin, like so. And at that point, you can push the brake pads out through the bottom, like so. Now, one thing I did definitely have to do on the rear was loosen up the cable, because if you've adjusted it over the course of time via the cable, it's going to be too tight of a fit to go back over the brake rotor once you have the new pads in there. Now we're going to put the new brake pads in. So when you have the brake pads, be careful not to touch the actual braking material. Any oils or grease that get on there can affect the braking performance and obviously safety of being able to stop the way you should. All you do is load the spring in between the two pads and then put it back in the caliper. So then we're just going to take the caliper pin and put it right back in, like so. And once it's all the way through, you want to bend the other end in to hold the brake pad in the caliper. And then once you have it in there, you want to make sure that the caliper pin can still move freely. You don't want it too tight to bind up the pads. And now we're just going to do reverse order, put the caliper back on. Once you get one of the screws started, then just go ahead and get the other one started. You don't want to tighten it up too much, that way if you need to make any sort of adjustments. All right, had a bit of a technical difficulty. I had loosened up the adjustment screw too much that holds the cable, and the nut on the back side actually fell off and the cable popped off. So I wasn't able to put the cable back on that way. I had to flip the bike over, take the wheel off, and then put the cable and nut back on the caliper properly. So now it's on there, and I'm going to adjust the tension of how much I want the brake lever to move. So once you get it where you want it to be, just tighten the cable back down. Then check your tension on your lever. Feels pretty good. And we're going to tighten it down the rest of the way. And I found too that as you're pulling the lever, it will actually center the caliper back where it needs to be evenly on the rotor. Perfect. So that's how you can change your brake pads without taking off the wheels, by just simply removing the calipers. In my personal opinion, I still like the original way I did it before by taking the wheels off. The front one obviously comes off real quick with the quick release. The rear one is not that difficult to take off either. I mean, you literally have the 2 bolts that hold on the axle, 2 more screws for the derailleur cover, and then you have the 1 zip tie for the cable going back there. I still find that it's much easier to just simply take the wheel off in order to take the brake pads out of the caliper from sliding them in and out, leaving the caliper where they are so you don't really mess with the adjustment as far as how the caliper is lined up with the brake rotor. You are still going to have to adjust the cable either way as far as the cable that goes onto the caliper itself, so that whether you do it with taking the caliper off or leaving the caliper on, taking the wheel off, it's still the same result there. So it was possible doing it this way. I think the other way is a little easier, and that's the way I'm going to continue to do it from here on out. But I just wanted to make a video and showing how to change the brake pads with taking the caliper off, leaving the wheels on. If you happen to like this video, please hit the like button down below. If you have any questions, please leave it right down in the comments. I'll be happy to get back to you. And if you happen to like review videos and rad videos in general, please consider subscribing. It does help me out. Thank you for watching the video, and have a great day.